Welcome to the Infowars Nightly News. I'm your host, Rob Dew, and today's date is May 8th, 2013, and it's Wednesday. And here's a look at what we have coming up tonight.
Tonight on the Infowars Nightly News, we bring you the latest on the Benghazi hearings. Then, many Americans are still convinced that gun homicides are up, even though the numbers are quite the opposite. And Rob Dew talks to another victim of, quote, imagined tyranny in the wake of the Boston bombing.
Imagined tyranny.
All that and more coming up on the Infowars Nightly News.
Okay, we're going to have John Bound coming up with us in studio with some live updates on Benghazi. But first, I want to get to an article from Kurt Nimmo, The Real Benghazi Story, U.S. Op to Arm Al-Qaeda in Syria. And this is a big deal where we were talking about there were 10,000 heat-seeking missiles in Benghazi, and that this whole, that Ambassador Stevens was most likely in a plot to give these missiles to Al-Qaeda, probably under the direction of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. We don't know yet, but that's what the intel we're getting from people who actually care about this story. There's our latest on Benghazi, continual live updates that we were posting all day. And this afternoon, Kurt Nimmo came out with the article that's on the computer there, Real Benghazi Story, U.S. Op to Arm Al-Qaeda in Syria. And I'm just going to read one quote here from John Baxter. Benghazi is not about Libya. Benghazi is about a policy of the Obama administration to involve the United States without clarity to the American people, not only in Libya, but throughout the Arab world that is now in turmoil. Benghazi is about the NSC directing an operation that is perhaps shadowy, perhaps a presidential finding, perhaps doesn't, that takes arms and men and puts them into Syria under the guise of the Free Syrian Army. And so, you know, we've been posting updates on it all day. We're going to play you some old clips, but first let's go to a quick clip from Mr. Hicks, who was one of the government officials who was there on the ground calling people, looking for help, and none was given. So here's that clip.
During the night, I'm in touch with Washington, keeping them posted of what's happening in Tripoli and, to the best of my knowledge, what I'm being told in Benghazi. 2 a.m., sorry, the Secretary of State Clinton called me, along with her senior staff. We're all on the phone. And she asked me what was going on, and I briefed her on the developments. Most of the conversation was about the search for Ambassador Stevens. They didn't know whether any more mortars were going to come in. The accuracy was terribly precise. The defense attaché had persuaded the Libyans to fly their C-130 to Benghazi. As Colonel Gibson and his 3 personnel were getting in the cars, he stopped and he called them off and told me that he had not been authorized to go. The vehicles had to go because the flight needed to go to to Benghazi. Lieutenant Colonel Gibson was furious.
So hours after our ambassador and 3 others are killed in Benghazi, the president of Libya says it was an attack with possible terror links, correct?
Yes, sir, that's what I recall.
Did the president of Libya ever mention a spontaneous protest related to a video?
No, sir.
Would a highly decorated career diplomat have told you or Washington had there been a demonstration outside his facility that day?
Yes, sir, he would have.
Did he mention one word about a protest or a demonstration?
No, sir, he did not.
This email was sent on September the 12th, the day after Benghazi, and several days before Ambassador Rice's television appearance. And I'll continue. When he said his government suspected that former Gaddafi regime elements carried out the attacks, I told him that the group that conducted the attacks, Ansar al-Sharia, is affiliated with Islamic terrorists. Let me say that again, Mr. Hicks. She told him, the State Department, on September the 12th, days before our ambassador went on national television, is telling the ambassador to Libya the group that conducted the attacks, Ansar al-Sharia, is affiliated with Islamic terrorists.
So there, Mr. Hicks, congressional testimony stating at 2 a.m. the night this attack was happening, he was on the phone with Hillary Clinton and her entire entourage. And for her to say she didn't know what was going on, totally disgraceful. We turn now to John Bound, who's been watching this all day, watching it unfold. What can you tell us, John? What's the latest?
Now we have the fallout. And after the hearings, Daniel Issa, the representative there with the House committee that was interviewing Mr. Hicks and Mr. Thompson and Mr. Nordstrom, I believe I got his name right. Yeah. He spoke about the fact that Hillary Clinton is at the bottom of this. It does lead to Hillary Clinton. In his words, he said, if Hillary Clinton is not responsible for the before, during, and after mistakes, it's somebody really close. And then the fallout that results from this is going to be the Republicans against the Democrats, one side trying to push it on the other, and also the total mainstream media whitewash.
A minor gang turf war is what we're going to see erupt out of this. And we're never going to get to the real issue, which is where are these 10,000 heat-seeking missiles?
Well, and this all resulted from the interview that Hicks did with Face the Nation only, a few months ago, or a few weeks ago, and then it just blew up into the hearings that we're seeing right now.
Right.
So,
yeah, the whistleblower started coming forward.
And that's the next thing is that John Bolton today in the Washington Times was saying that he believes that there are going to be a lot more witnesses that come out, people that are involved with the ARB. They keep mentioning the ARB during the hearings. That's the Accountability Review Board, which basically kind of gave two different sides of the story. They said, yeah, we did recommend that they don't have security, and then they had other testimony where they said that they didn't. So that's got to be cleared up. There have to be more hearings. There have to be more witnesses, and there are key members that are going to have to be witnesses that testify in the hearings coming in the next few weeks, because they only went to a certain level. Yeah. They only went to as high up. They didn't interview Patrick Kennedy enough. And so now we're going to see these higher-ups, these key members that need to be interviewed.
Patrick Kennedy, he was one of the key people that told us that the underwear bomber was led on the plane because their agency was asked by another agency not to revoke his visa. Very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It all ties together.
And what I also think is most interesting is that when we went to CNN, went to Fox, it was nothing about Benghazi. It was like they had shut it off. I guess Fox covered it for a little while. CNN turned it off. MSNBC turned it off. They didn't want these hearings going out to their audience. They want to keep their people in the dark because, congressional testimony, that could be damning. We could have something that would come out that would make, the president embarrassed or something.
Well, this is Watergate 2.0. This is huge. This is a huge story to anybody that's paying attention and cares about our country. And, they're going to completely whitewash. The mainstream media is going to whitewash everything. We're going to hear about some girl that shot her boyfriend and the girl's locked up there in Cleveland. Right. That's what we're going to hear about. Yeah. We're not going to hear about the complete destruction of the core of our American democracy.
The arming of Al-Qaeda with these missiles.
Which leads to the arming of Al-Qaeda.
That is just, and then we're going to have these attacks over and over again. They're going to say, well, we got to go in and stop Al-Qaeda in this country, and now in this country, now in this country, when we gave them the damn missiles.
Well, and what stinks to high heaven is the fact that the NATO and the United Nations are completely involved in this. And they were the ones, what looks like, they were the ones saying, no, stand down.
Right.
He was asking a general to come and help. The general told that security detail to stand down. There was other AFRICOM. They were asked. They said they couldn't come in. And Hicks was basically saying if we had shown some kind of firepower with maybe just a plane, a flyover, the Libyans would have backed off.
They would have scattered.
Just one plane, and they were just left out there to be killed.
Kind of reminds me of
with
USS
with precision.
Yeah, precision mortar attacks. He did talk about that.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, we're going to go to 3 clips because we were doing our own investigation of this. We weren't waiting for congressional hearings. We were bringing in people who are geopolitically savvy. The first clip we're going to go to is Steve Pachinik, and that was in, let me get the exact date here. That was in 8/12. That was August. And then we're going to go to Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer, who we had on the show in November of 2012. So we got August, November, and then we have a clip of Rand Paul chewing out Hillary Clinton. after she claimed, well, I had no idea this was going on. That was in January of this year. So we're going to go to those clips. John, thanks for coming in with that update, and I guess you're going to be on the show tomorrow maybe with another update.
We're going to follow this thing real close.
All right, well, let's go to these clips now.
Your sources, you were telling me off air that your Pentagon sources, I mean, they know who really killed this guy and the message it's meant to send.
Well, the message he was meant to send, the Pentagon sources have informed me that the distance between the Libyan embassy where our ambassador was and where the rioters were was so large, and 2 days of a delay in response, meaning simply that they were professionals ready to take out our ambassador, who was an Arabist. And the reason I say he's an Arabist, it was basically they wanted to kill him because he was too influential in the Arab world. He was too dangerous to Israeli interests, to Saudi interests, and to certain American national security interests run by the neocons.
This was a protracted battle. We're talking about starting in the evening, say between 7 and 8, and lasting until the next morning. Now, one notable thing, just to frame this whole thing, I think this is where we're going to go with this, from what we were talking about, is that during this entire time, no one knew the ambassador was dead. And this is notable by the fact that one of the things you think they'd want to do is find him by the fact you would not want to have a hostage situation similar to the one that hobbled Jimmy Carter during his reelection campaign back in 1980. And think about this. If Ambassador Stevens was taken hostage, every day there would be a reminder of the failed policy. So therefore, you have to wonder, why didn't the recovery of the ambassador take front and center from the moment that he went missing? And it's notable that there's been no mention of that by any outlet, how they wanted to go after him. So with that said, it's very clear now that within the context of the event of 11 September of this year, of 2012, it was very clear from the moment, I'd say about 4 p.m. after Ambassador Stevens met with his last visitor of the day, which apparently was the Turkish representative. That's notable. Turkey is partnering with us right now in a covert action to help do two things: increasing level of intelligence we're aware of by using the Turkish intelligence assets on the ground in Syria, and by actually working with us to quote-unquote arm the friendly rebels, whoever they are.
Thank you for appearing, Secretary Clinton, and I'm glad to see your health is improving. I'm glad that you're accepting responsibility. I think that ultimately with your leaving, you accept the culpability for the worst tragedy since 9/11, and I really mean that. Had I been president at the time, and I found that you did not read the cables from Benghazi, you did not read the cables from Ambassador Stevens, I would have relieved you of your post. I think it's inexcusable.
So there you go. The story that we're hearing from the mainstream media is not the story we're hearing from the people we're interviewing, the insiders, the people who've been in messes like this, who've even done things like this. In Pachenik's case, he's been in some interesting dealings in his life. So, of course, we're going to be bringing you more information as it becomes available. Moving on to gun homicides. Americans convinced gun homicides soar despite actual plunge in gun crimes. There you go. While gun-related homicides are down 39%, we actually think it's 49%, from a 1993 peak, only 12% of people believe that gun crimes have fallen. Non-fatal firearm crimes declined by 69% to 467,000 in that same period, but 56% of Americans believe that gun crime is higher than it was 20 years ago. Maybe that has to do with Eric Holder putting out that memo that we need to brainwash people about guns. We have to show it every day. Guns are bad. We're having gun buyback programs. We're worried about illegal guns. What are illegal guns, huh? Those are the ones that you don't tell the government that you have? How is that illegal? I don't know, but they say, let's pull up a couple charts here. We got violent crime statistics. This is from the FBI. 1992, you can see the rate there, to 2011. You can see the drop. And now we do some math. We start subtracting, dividing, and there you get 49% crime drop. That's based off the FBI statistics. The other statistics were Department of Justice. Now we're going to go to murder rate. This is per 100,000 people. You got 9.3 in 1992, and then 4.6. Another 49% decrease. And now let's show all crime. These are the rates between 92 and 2011. In every single case, it's going down. Even though the mainstream media and the rest of the dinosaur prostitute media want to tell you that you got to be afraid and it's all guns problem. It has nothing to do with the fact that people are becoming armed, that firearm ownership is going up, and that's why crime is going down. But they're never going to tell you that because they want to take your guns. And real quickly, the report was off of this U.S. Department of Justice firearm violence from 93 to 2011. Their numbers are a little different than the FBI's, but you look at the two, there's still a drop any which way you slice it. And now I want to go to a video of, this is a kid, actually, Alex Jones is going to introduce this, but he saw this today. He's like, I got to shoot a video, And the headlines from Fox 19, video of Vegas boy grilling cop goes viral. It's got over 4 million views of this kid with his camera walking out, wants to know why this cop, this mustache welding cop, is parked on a sidewalk getting his giant big gulp. So we're going to go to this video now from Alex Jones, and we got to commend this kid. His name is Jeremy Drew. Kudos to you, son. Let's go to that video.
A 12-year-old boy in Las Vegas, Nevada, did what all American adults need to be doing to keep our out-of-control government in check. He saw a police officer pull up on the sidewalk, go into a store to get a soft drink, and then waddle out. If a citizen would have done that, the cop would have written them a ticket or maybe even arrested them. We've seen many cases of people parking on the sidewalk and being arrested. And he says to the police officer, the public servant, are you responding to an emergency? Because you just pulled up here on the sidewalk. And the cop says, what are you, a lawyer? Let me see your ID. He turns it around. And that's what government does. It makes us all suspects under Homeland Security, under the fake war on terror and the fake war on drugs. And we never look at who the real suspect for corruption and tyranny is in history that our founding fathers warned us of: government and government servants. Because throughout history and in modern times, it is government that gets out of control and begins to dominate the population. So we wanted to show you this video. The young man shot the video sideways, so we're flipping it right side up so you can see it and follow along with it. But it's just an incredible illustration of how out of touch our government servants are, that he would try to intimidate the boy, claim that he was loitering, claim that he'd done something wrong, claim that he needed to prove who he was, and wouldn't give the young man his badge number, which, by the way, is the state law there in Nevada and most other states that you're supposed to do that. So you have a cop breaking the law on multiple fronts for his convenience and then trying to treat the boy like he was some type of serf or slave. But within this is the essence of how we're going to save our society. Because most adults I know don't understand that cops can't do that unless there's an emergency. Most people don't understand that they have no responsibility to ID themselves to a police officer, even though they claim that you have a responsibility to, and have a lot of fake laws that have been overturned still on the books. So I want to salute this young man, and I want to challenge adults out there to do what he's done and stand up to this type of tyranny.
Hello? Is there a reason for you to park on the sidewalk? Is it like an emergency or anything?
Because I can.
Oh. Can I see your badge number?
Why?
Because I have the right to.
You do, huh?
Yeah.
What are you, junior lawyer?
No, I just want to see your badge number. Can I please see your badge number?
No.
Really? Huh? No, I'm minor. I'm Jeremy Drew. I'm Jeremy. I don't know, but is it an emergency why you can park a motorized vehicle on the sidewalk? Yeah. Yes. Because I don't think it's necessary to park your motorized vehicle on the sidewalk. No, I'm actually mailing this. Huh? I'm filming. Yeah. All right, well, can I see your badge number? No? All right.
So we salute you, Jeremy Drew. May you, a 12-year-old man, you are a man, encourage other men who have abdicated over their responsibility to stand up for the liberties and rights that our forebears fought so hard to secure. And in closing, as a newsman, as a talk show host who travels the country and talks to a lot of people and focuses on the news, I'm here to tell you America and the world itself is waking up to government arrogance and red carpet hypocrisy, and the people aren't going to put up with the tyranny much longer. Look at Benghazi. Look at Fast and Furious. Look at so many other examples, the billions of bullets they've been caught buying and the armored vehicles and the training to take on the American people in a civil war. We don't just buy your denials and lies anymore. The sleeping giant has awoken. Now back to Infowars Nightly News and Rob Dew.
Hey, Jeremy, if you're out there and watching this right now, we are trying to contact you. We'd like to get you on the show, possibly even offer you a job. So talk with your parents, and we definitely love to have you on the team. You have, as they say, panache, as they say. That's a nice way of saying it. Let's move on. Judge orders the conspiracy re-education for Lauryn Hill. You remember Lauryn Hill? She actually had a album a long time ago called The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Grammy Award-winning singer Lauryn Hill has been ordered by a judge to undergo counseling because of her conspiracy theories. Well, what was her conspiracy theory? That the music industry oppresses people with actual talent in favor of pumping out mindless nonsense. Wow, I really have to think on that one. Wow. You think they really conspire to do that? Do you ever wonder why the music out there doesn't say anything political, and when they do, like the Dixie Chicks case, they get pummeled into the ground and told to shut up? You ever wonder why that is? Maybe it's because they are slaves, and they take these talented people, prop them up, get them under these heavy loans where they're basically indentured servants for life, unless by a miracle they become a prince or Madonna and are able to break out of that system. But for most of them out there, it's not like that. Continuing with the article. Hill has attempted to warn young people about how pop culture cannibalism, as she calls it, and the deliberate reductionism of art and music is damaging a whole generation and turning them into passive, unthinking consumers. Wow. I couldn't have said it better. The judge's order that Hill undergo what amounts to brainwashing and re-education simply for publicly proclaiming the fact that the music industry is designed to strangle true talent while promoting amoral, vacuous, mindless, turgid drivel. Way to go, Paul. Is part of an increasing trend towards labeling common sense as a mental illness if it goes against the establishment grain in any way. I couldn't have said it better, Paul and Lauryn. And we're also reaching out to Lauryn Hill, trying to get her on the show, because we have a platform here where you can say whatever you want, as long as you don't cuss. We will bleep you. Moving on, our last article of the day. Texas House blocks federal gun control, 102-31, and that's House Bill 928. An agency of this state or political subdivision of this state and a law enforcement officer or other person employed by an agency by this state or political subdivision of this state may not contract with or in any other manner provide assistance to a federal agency or official with respect to enforcement of federal statute, order, rule, or regulation purporting to regulate a firearm accessory, or firearm ammunition. If the statute, order, rule, or regulation imposes a prohibition, restriction, or other regulation, such as capacity or size limitation or registration requirement that does not exist under the laws of this state. What are they saying? We're not going to send state public servants to go after law-abiding gun owners here in Texas. That's basically what they're saying. They're saying, federal government, get out of Texas if you want to try to control our guns. And that's what we should be saying, and that's what states all around should be passing bills like this. It hasn't passed fully, and the governor has not signed it, but Texas House blocks that federal gun control. That's the bill that's up right there right now. We're going to our quote of the day. It's from Bill Moyers. Secrecy is the freedom tyrants dream of, And that's what you saw in Benghazi. They tried to cover that up. They tried to hide the survivors. For days, people were asking, where are the survivors of this? Why can't we talk to them? Why can't we get their stories? Because, you know, hey, these kidnapped people that were held for 10 years in captivity, we're going to hear their stories in no time. They had pictures of them up on the web as soon as they were found. God bless them. I think that's great. And I'm glad they got out of that situation. And, you know, that's not, you can go into a whole thing about kidnapping and where these kids really go. And it's not just dungeons and houses and subdivisions. It's white slavery all over the world. These people are turned into sex slaves. They're turned into victims of snuff films. It's horrible. We'll get into it on another show. We're going to be back with David Knight sitting down here. We're going to talk about Paul Revere. This is kind of the aftermath of people submitting, but we still have a long way to go. We're going to show you 2 films in their entirety, and they are dynamite. And then after that, stay tuned, because we're going to have a interview with another, I guess you could call him a whistleblower, just an average citizen who didn't like the cops coming into his neighborhood, the militarized federal goons kicking in their doors, pointing guns at people, treating common people as criminals. And we'll be back with that, so stay tuned. It's Infowars Nightly News.
The important thing about the Pro 1 filter today is that the material we use for removing fluoride and other heavy metals now will remove the latest form of fluoride called hydrofluorosilicic acid. There's no other fluoride reduction filter out there that will remove that type of fluoride. And it's extremely important because today we're hearing more and more cities are using that form of fluoride.
We've been having medication forced on us through the water system for quite a while. Most people don't realize it. Most people don't realize the negative effects of fluoride.
There's a wide range of health effects that are attributed to fluoride.
Bottom line, why should somebody get this new Pro 1 Pro Pure filter?
The reason to buy the Pro 1, it's an all-in-one filter. It's convenient, easy to use. It doesn't require the add-on fluoride filter, and in addition, this filter removes the latest form of fluoride called hydrofluorosilicic acid.
I'm Darren McBreen, and these are some of the new items that are available now at InfoWarsShop.com.
Alert the public to Obama's blatant abuse of power with the new Obama t-shirt. Obama's Joker face on the front and come and take it on the back. It's time to publicly call him out for what he is, a tyrant. Defend the Second Amendment with our top seller Come and Take It t-shirts. And look at that, women's cut tank tops and t-shirts now available. Nice hat. Plus the Don't Tread on Me flag. And now you can become a micro distributor of the Infowars magazine. Plus, get your own copy delivered right to your door each and every month. And if you're tired like I am of you and your family being exposed to polluted drinking water, get the Pro 1 high-performance water filter. It gets rid of all pathogenic bacteria, cyst, fluoride, heavy metals, and numerous other contaminants.
So join the revolution at InfoWarsShop.com.
Welcome back to Infowars Nightly News. I'm your host, Rob Dew. And be sure you keep checking out Infowars.com for all the latest of what is going on in Benghazi. We just had a big, long presentation. We've been interviewing people about this since it occurred, telling you what we thought was going on. And it turns out that, well, we're right. But now we're going to change gears just a quick bit, and we're joined by David Knight to give us another update on the Paul Revere contest. The deadline has passed, so if you did not get your entry in, you won't be eligible for the contest. But we're going to talk about some possibilities. It's still not totally, closed out in that framework of, wanting to see great films by great filmmakers. And with that, we'll turn to David Knight. How are you doing today?
Doing good, Rob.
Excellent. So let's get into it. Basically, the contest is closed. The deadline is passed. But
for the cash portion.
For the cash portion of the prize. But go ahead.
Well, there's another part of this, which is the talent search portion. And so if you want to get looked at for the talent search portion, or if you've even got just a message that you want to get out to a larger audience, if you send us something that's interesting, we're going to be posting a lot of these videos on the website. We're going to be including some things in the nightly news like we're doing tonight. So if you want to get your information out there, you've worked on it, I mean, it's still not too late to get to those parts of the contest. If you haven't heard anything from us by now. You should have gotten a confirmation from us. Send us another email with the links to your video. It has to be on YouTube and one other site. And we're going to go by the dates that it was uploaded. So even if something happened to the email, or we didn't get it right, or it got deleted, that's not a problem. We're going to look at the date that it was uploaded. So you should have a confirmation from us at this point. If not, let us know. Okay.
And one thing I noticed, I got a lot of emails from people who weren't sure if they were going to make the deadline, and they said, it's uploading, it's going to take 10 hours. Now, and I'm not even sure about this. Maybe you know about this. Does YouTube base the date on it by the time you started the upload, or by the time it's finished? Do you even know that?
I don't know. I don't know. If they sent us a link and got it in at least one of the sites by the time that the contest closed, I'm considering that in as being submitted. Right. Because we know the main thing is that we didn't want people who abided by the deadline and got their work done in time. We didn't want their stuff to be compared to people who took another day or two or a week to do some fine tuning and tweaking on their stuff. So, it's a little bit of a gray area there, but we just want to make sure that they're not taking time to fix stuff, because we get a lot of follow-up stuff from people that said, I submitted this, and then they noticed that there was a glitch in their video or something like that, so they sent it back another 2 or 3 times. Yeah. If you do that, don't delete the one that made it by the deadline. That's the one we're going to go by, and it's not going to be that fatal. If you've got some kind of a little glitch or something in your video, we can overlook that. That's not that's not the killer thing.
Right. So and tonight we're just going to show 2 videos. We've got
we're going to show them in their entirety.
Right, in our entirety, which we haven't done yet. Now, in that last week, how many submissions did we get in the last week?
Well, I'd say we probably got about 500 emails in the last week, the last 2 days.
Right, of the contest, which we knew was going to happen. We knew people were going to wait till the last minute, take all the time they could. Right. Really
and that's another part about the deadline. People are going to work on that, trying to polish it right up to the deadline. And unfortunately, a lot of people who haven't had a lot of experience in this didn't realize that, hey, you might run into a glitch with your with Final Cut or with iMovie or whatever.
Might be watching that render bar for 3 days.
Right, and you might run into a glitch when you try to upload it. So I mean, that's we know that because we've done it before.
Right. Yeah, and it is it's something you learn by. So even if you didn't get in for that cash prize, we always have contests here at Infowars. Right. This won't be the last.
Right.
I think it's just the next phase of we're going to have more contests, better contests. People submitting stuff.
And if it's interesting content, we're still interested in it.
Exactly.
We're interested in it for the website. We want you to get the information out there. That's a large part of what this contest is about. And when you leave comments on people's videos, try to be positive about it. Right. Tell them what you liked about it. And if there's something that you think they could do better, do it in a nice way. Look at the way people comment on Vimeo as opposed to the way people comment on YouTube. I know that most of them are going to be on YouTube that you're looking at, but try not to get into the snarky troll type
that doesn't really do any good. It doesn't serve a purpose. It just keeps the negative energy flowing. And, we want to be positive. We want to get the information out there and wake more people up.
Right.
And that's one way to do it is to make these videos. So let's go to the first one we have from Ian Boyd. And it's called I Love Gun Control. He wrote, directed, produced, shot, edited, and scored the piece. So he's a jack of many trades.
That's right.
And we're going to play the whole thing. It's about 10 minutes long. So
and we'll just let it speak for itself.
Yeah.
Because that's probably the best way to do it.
All right. Well, let's go to it now.
I have a gun.
No. No, you don't. You let the government take that away. Yourself?
I forgot. I'm dealing with a typical brainwashed zombie.
What is this? What do you want?
You know what I want.
No. I keep all my money in the bank. I have nothing of value here.
You are a liar. There's an armed response security sign on your lawn. Let me tell you something. Those costume cops, they're not gonna help you. It's just you and me. Well, it's always been. You on one side and me on the other. And because you let the government take away your right to defend yourself, well, it's like stealing candy from a baby.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I got an idea. I don't know why I didn't think about this before. Genius!
I just might have a way in which you can defend yourself. Are you ready for it? Scissors. Okay. Hear me out. Okay. I saw a Homeland Security video once in which they said you could thwart off an attacker with scissors! Scissors! You gotta have some laying around here someplace, right? No?
Pliers. Pliers. That'll do the trick. Because I am afraid of pliers.
Would you like me to go find you some? Yeah? Oh, yeah. Okay. Here's your chance. I'm all by myself. You may not get this opportunity again. You little scared man. I'll just play. Come here. Here. You know, I have to confess. I love.
Thank you, Joe.
No, really. I love gun control. You know, it just might be the best thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life. Because now I know that when I'm at your back window disarming that half-assed security alarm, or creeping down your hallway in the middle of the night towards you and your family, well, I know that I'll be safe. Hey, I am a criminal, and I will always have a gun. And there's nothing you can do to stop me. Ooh, damn. Did you count that bad breath of yours?
How did you know I don't have a gun? I could have an illegal one.
You? You have an Obama sticker on your car. Not that that makes any difference. They're all a bunch of professional liars. Oh, but you think that they're so nice and so honest. Like Smokey the Bear. Hmm? So wait! Hey, Pop! Boo-boo!
I told you I don't have anything.
Really?
I am very sorry to hear that, you know? That you would play it that way.
Because I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it was the way I was raised, or my metabolism. I don't know. But what I do know is that I am not a patient man! Do you know why I chose this room?
I have no idea.
Well, it's because after I shoot you, blood won't get all over the carpet. And the new people that move in here after you're dead and it's been resold, they won't have any idea what happened here tonight. And I'll just come right back. And I'll do the same thing. All over again. To them. Bet you wish you had a gun now.
No, please don't do this. Please don't do this. Please.
Too bad.
Wow. That reminds me of the old saying, when seconds count, cops are minutes away. And that was great.
Yeah, wasn't that done? Yeah, that's really well done and very professionally done. And it's a good example of somebody getting you emotionally involved with an issue and making all the talking points that we talk about there.
Right.
You know, they were all there, but they were done in a way that really takes you into it. It's a great, good piece, really good piece.
I imagine they were definitely in California.
Yeah, I think he's got an LA area code.
There you go. So this last one we have John Cabal versus Alex Jones. And you were telling me this goes back to he kind of formats this to an old movie.
This is a more typical documentary, okay, and it's not as slickly done as this. It's more of an intellectual approach to it, but interesting content, a real interesting take on this, because it goes back to the book The Shape of Things to Come by H.G. Wells, and there was a movie that was made in the 1930s called Things to Come, and H.G. Wells was actually alive and participated in the making of that movie. And H.G. Wells, as he points out in this, was the guy that's credited with coming up with the New World Order phrase, and it's kind of his prototype for what he sees happening with the New World Order. But he has an interesting spin on it, because what he does is he kind of takes the antagonist and protagonist from the movie and the novel, and he compares them to Piers Morgan and Alex Jones, and he talks about the similarities with Alex and the chief, one of the characters in the novel. But it's really interesting, and let me read this quote from what he says in it. He says, "This isn't just a corny relic of the past, it's a template of the future, as important to the modern cabal of self-anointed masters as the Parthenon was to architects throughout the ages. Its weird staginess and broad strokes weren't the accidental result of primitive cinema technology. Filmmaking was quite advanced by the mid-1930s. The film was made as a vehicle to talk down to the unwashed masses as an early effort at what we would now call predictive programming." So it's a real interesting documentary, and it's about 20 minutes long.
Right. So. And we're going to play this, and that's going to be our break, actually. And when we come back, we are going to have a guest who we're actually going to play a video that David helped shoot with Dan Bidandi's help. Dan Bidandi went to Watertown, interviewed residents who felt they were under martial law, who felt they were being oppressed, who felt their rights were taken away, from one 19-year-old boy unarmed hiding in a boat, which was an excuse to lock down an entire city. Well, David put a great intro into that, comparing some stuff that Ron Paul said, and then this ridiculous MSNBC host who called Ron Paul a liar when Ron Paul said people's rights were trampled, it was martial law declared. And so we put this on, and then we got an email from a guy who said, "Hey, I was there too. Here's my house, and we're going to show you the picture. There's a tank right there with a bunch of troops armed to the hilt, and he points out where his house is within the Watertown district." So we're going to go to John Cabal versus Alex Jones, and that'll be our break, and then we'll be right back with that interview. So stay tuned.
For some time, when listening to the passionate, grainy voice of Alex Jones, railing against the growing shadow of a totalitarian New World Order, there's been a growing feeling of deja vu. Somewhere in the memory hole, there was a strikingly similar attitude, an almost theatrical, raspy, rapid-fire voice heard in a nearly forgotten sci-fi film from the mid-1930s. It wasn't until watching the gun control debate between Alex and the imperious, insufferable Piers Morgan that the pieces fell together. The film, featuring a distorted Alex Jones prototype, was Things to Come, based on the science fiction novel by futurist H.G. Wells, The Shape of Things to Come. Since Wells is often credited with coining the term New World Order, and Alex Jones is the leading pop culture opponent of the New World Order, the two men have, in a sense, already met. From Things to Come, a grainy old movie that had long ago fallen into the public domain, rise the images of a flawed but passionate nationalist resistor known as the Chief, and the pompous, imperious elitist by the unsubtle name of John Cabal. John Cabal heads a new technocratic proto-world government, and the Chief runs the last nation-state. In parallel, Piers Morgan represents a powerful, elitist world propaganda empire, while Alex Jones is the tip of the spear of a grassroots nationalist new media. Cabal and the Chief fight a hot war, while Morgan and Jones fight a world info war. Sadly, no really high-quality prints of Things to Come exist, but the film is one of the most important movies to come out of pre-World War II England, not because it is a particularly good film, but because it is such an amazing New World Order blueprint, a frontal assault on the idea of sovereign nations, religion, liberty, and individual ambition. It is also amazing because it has some of the greatest talent and most lavish production values available at the time applied to its production. Perhaps it is not a great film as cinema because its makers were true believers, too close and too sympathetic to its propaganda messaging to be objective about the film as art. In short, Things to Come is the story of a transition through a war from a world of individual nation-states to a futuristic vision of a world run by a technocratic class whose focus is spreading an elite core of humanity to the stars rather than being particularly concerned with the petty needs and rights of individuals. The action takes place in the near future, 1940, an intermediate future, 1970, and a distant future, 2036. In a representative community aptly dubbed Everytown, Things to Come embodies, it really reeks of the truism that socialist elitists love humanity but hate people. That certainly sums up the mindset of the main character of Things to Come, John Cabal, and of course his spiritual heir, Piers Morgan. As a direct result of decades of devastating war, Everytown is eventually taken over by a warlord gangster capitalist named the Chief. After becoming disillusioned with the existing order and the conflict inherent in free societies, we now see the middle-aged version of John Cabal as a kind of a visitor from space, actually a subterranean headquarters in, of all places, oil-rich Iraq. Cabal is back in Everytown to lay down the law to the Chief that the days of the nation-state, private enterprise, and self-interest are over. Cabal has been busy organizing the New World Order using science, I guess very much like Nazi Germany, to build an irresistible futuristic air fleet and demands that the Chief relent. In other words, surrender or else. The or else is the so-called gas of peace, dropped from Cabal's massive bombers, which is supposed to knock opponents out. Strangely, it winds up being fatal to only one person, the gun-toting Chief, while the rest of the rabble seem to have a zombie-like smile on their face. It's actually logical that they chose Raymond Massey to play Cabal, who also played Abe Lincoln and John Brown, all dour fanatics with a messianic complex and a determination to bend the world to their own view, regardless of the human toll. The Chief responds to Cabal's ultimatum by taking him prisoner, but not before a heated confrontation between the two world views.
The first thing we shall want is to get our planes in the air again.
Right, a laudable ambition. But our new order has an objection to private airplanes.
The impudence. I'm not talking about private airplanes. Our airplanes are public airplanes. This is an independent sovereign state at war. I know nothing about any old order. I'm the Chief here, and I'm not taking any orders, old or new, from you.
Suppose I've walked into trouble.
Yeah, you can take that as right.
We have some hundreds of new type planes, and we're building more, fast. The factories are working again. We're gradually restoring order and trade in the whole Mediterranean area. We're scouting this region now to see how things are.
You found out. This is an independent sovereign state.
Yes, we must talk about that.
We don't discuss it.
We don't approve of independent sovereign states.
You don't approve?
We mean to stop them.
That's war.
If you will.
All right, I think we know how we stand. Burton, take this man. If he gives you any trouble, club him. You hear that, Mr. Wings over your wits?
My friends know my whereabouts. If I don't come back, they'll send a force to find me.
Perhaps they won't find you.
They'll find you.
They'll find me ready.
Irish did it. Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. Mao took the guns. Fidel Castro took the guns. Hugo Chavez took the guns. And I'm here to tell you, 1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms. Doesn't matter how many lemmings you get out there on the street begging for them to have their guns taken. We will not relinquish them. Do you understand? That's why you're going to fail, and the establishment knows no matter how much propaganda, the Republic will rise again when you attempt to take our guns. My family in the Texas Revolution against Santa Anna, my family was at the core on both sides starting that because Santa Anna came to take the guns at Gonzales, Texas. Pierce, don't try what your ancestors did before. Why don't you come to America? I'll take you out shooting. You can become an American and join the Republic.
It's interesting, in the face of the so-called war on terror recently re-energized by the Boston Marathon bombing, that the novel goes into the subjugation and destruction of religious groups and, interestingly, predicts the targeting of Islam as a grave threat to the elitist vision of a New World Order. In the Wells novel, they go after Islam first, but they get around to eradicating the most visible symbols of Christianity as well. Alex Jones has been trying to warn people for years that Christians would be used by the godless elites to wage war on Islam, but would be betrayed and also destroyed once the Islamic world had been neutralized. In the CNN duel between worldviews, insufferable Piers Morgan was literally playing the part of John Cabal, and Alex was more or less cast by fate in the role of the chief. It's a striking comparison when you look at imperious Piers Morgan and Raymond Massey playing John Cabal, both dripping with condescension. Things get really spooky when you hear the voice and see the body language of Alex Jones and his counterpart, Sir Ralph Richardson, playing the chief. Jones is a Texas good old boy, a Jeffersonian natural aristocrat, blessed with near-total recall, and Richardson was an acclaimed British Shakespearean actor, but accents aside, their vocal instruments are remarkably similar. This storyline isn't just a corny relic of the past, it's a template of the future, as important to the modern cabal of self-anointed masters as the Parthenon was to architects throughout the ages. Its weird staginess and broad strokes weren't the accidental result of primitive cinema technology. Filmmaking was quite advanced by the mid-1930s, some would say never to be surpassed. The film was meant as a vehicle to talk down to the unwashed masses, an early effort at what we now call predictive programming. The Depression-era audiences of young people unable to get jobs would be very receptive to any message of change and renewal. The young and disenfranchised would see nothing wrong with the central planning point of view of things to come. Younger audiences in love with anything new or different would think, why not get rid of a bunch of troublemakers like the chief and his dirty, backward companions so that we could live in a brave new world where men fly into space, live and work in compartments made of clear plastic, surrounded by flat-screen TVs. Even Hitler knew that young people would applaud the concept of out with the old and in with the new because they haven't learned to appreciate and value tradition. The Hitler Youth movement was proof of concept. To them, the past is a place they didn't live, and the present is a place where older people and their traditions seem to be a straitjacket on youthful energy. That's why Things to Come was specifically aimed at immature minds. That's also why such skilled filmmakers would intentionally produce a film so utterly lacking in subtlety. It should be noted that there is a major flaw in the film as a vehicle to brainwash young blue-collar people in the 1930s. In the segment that takes place in the idyllic technocratic future, the men of the future are shown wearing, of all things, short skirts. Not an appealing concept to the average moviegoer of the time, or any time or place outside of Nancy Pelosi's congressional district. Knowing what we now know about the cabal of elitists responsible for this movie, this inexplicable gaffe and misjudgment is a clue about the true nature of these self-proclaimed elitists. It's interesting to note that Things to Come has a connection to Star Trek in this regard, a later and much more successful effort at predictive programming. In the Stephen Whitfield book, The Making of Star Trek, it's mentioned that Gene Roddenberry also planned to have some of the men aboard the Enterprise walking around in skirts to show that gender roles would be done away with in the future. The NBC executives of the mid-1960s killed the idea, but in the first episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation, after Roddenberry had gained total control over the production, a few men were shown wearing a skirt uniform. But even in the mid-1980s, this proved to be too disturbing for audiences and was quickly dropped. Even with all that has happened in America to destroy conventional morality, even in our modern Barney Frank reality, this cross-dressing element of things to come is disturbing.
Ted Anderson, president of Midas Resources. With over 30 years of experience in the precious metals business, I can tell you without a doubt, we are facing the most dangerous and volatile times, not just in the United States, but worldwide. Peace of mind is gold and silver. Now is the time to invest in gold. When it comes to bullion coins, our prices are competitive and the closest to melt. If it's numismatics you're looking for, we have some of the best deals out there. Visit MidasResources.com today or go to Infowars.com and click on the link to see our daily specials. Here's an example of one of our long-term specials we've been offering for more than a year. 2 silver dollars from the turn of the last century, plus 2 powerful films, The Obama Deception and The American Dream. We also add in the book Dishonest Money, all for $72 and free shipping. The most trusted name in precious metals is Midas Resources. Call 1-800-686-2237 or go to Infowars.com. I'm Ted Anderson with Midas Resources.
We are now only entering the edge of a global financial superstorm, the likes of which the planet has never seen. Here in the United States, the private Federal Reserve is giving more than $85 billion of taxpayer money a month to themselves and other offshore foreign banks. And the worst part is, we have to pay the banks interest on the money we give them. There is now a race between the global central bank mafia cartels to see who can devalue their country's currencies the fastest. We are already seeing big increases in inflation at the grocery store and the gas line. This will eventually lead to hyperinflation. More than a dozen top globalists like George Soros have been buying record amounts of gold while at the same time bad-mouthing it to the public. Don't just listen to what they say. Watch what they do. For more than 6,000 years of recorded human history, gold has been the ultimate hedge against uncertain times and inflation. Before investing in metals, it is important to do your own research and find a reputable company. Midas Resources has the highest Better Business Bureau rating of an A+. Unfortunately, very few precious metal companies can boast that. Midas Resources has assembled one of the most educated, researched, and professional teams of brokers in the industry. The evidence is overwhelming. In uncertain times, gold and silver is safe harbor. Now is the time to invest in gold. Call 800-686-2237 and Midas Resources will mail you 10 reasons to own gold absolutely free. No shipping. It's absolutely free. And finally, Ted Anderson wants to challenge you to find any deal that comes close to his 2 silver dollars at cost with free shipping with 2 free films and a book for $72. That's more than $160 value for $72 shipping included. Click the link at Infowars.com to go to the MidasResources.com specials page. Brought to you by MidasResources.com and Ted Anderson, the trusted name in precious metals.
Welcome back to the Infowars Nightly News. Hope you enjoyed that extended break with one of our entries to the Paul Revere Film Festival. That was John Cabal versus Alex Jones. I want to go to another video real quick, but this is just as serious in nature, but also more hard-hitting and more in your face because it shows more mainstream media lies. Lawrence O'Donnell, an MSNBC Skeksis Award winner, went on the air right after Ron Paul came out and said there was martial law in Watertown. You had militarized police. You had people being forced from their homes with their hands up. And he said this was martial law, and this is ridiculous. And Lawrence O'Donnell got in there and was being an apologist for all that, saying those are all lies. There was no martial law. So we're going to go to a piece now with David Knight introducing Dan Bidandi, first showing Lawrence O'Donnell's lies, and then going to Dan Bidandi, who interviewed people, residents in Watertown. And when we get back from that, we have another resident from Watertown to shed more light on this fake martial law that never happened. So enjoy this video.
I, 10 Anderson, president of Midas Resources, with over 30 years of experience in the precious metals business, I can tell you without a doubt, we are facing the most dangerous and volatile times, not just in the United States, but worldwide. Peace of mind is gold and silver. Now is the time to invest in gold. Call
I'm David Knight with Infowars Nightly News. Now, recently, Ron Paul was on the Alex Jones show, and he expressed concern about the way the police conducted themselves. He had some pretty strong language. He called it martial law, and we agree.
Governments are supposed to protect our liberties. Once they decide they're going to make us safe, economically and physically safe, they can only do this by taking away our liberties. Those pictures really concern me. That is such a visual image when you see thousands and thousands of troops, and they weren't your local friendly policemen that were involved. I mean, can you imagine all these people being locked? They became prisoners. It was accepted too easily. It was martial law.
But Lawrence O'Donnell took exception to that, and he very strongly called Ron Paul a liar repeatedly on his show for what he said about the way the police conducted themselves, going house to house, pointing guns at people in windows in houses, dragging them out of their houses at gunpoint, going down the streets in armored personnel carriers with full police riot gear.
Wait, I want to show pictures first, and then I want to show some of the pictures of the Boston police, okay? Look at this. I mean, if this is what you have, why don't you invade a country? Show some of the other ones. I mean, go up to Canada, take their oil. Look at these. These are half-tracks. I don't care what you might want to call it, an urban assault vehicle, but this country is becoming a police state, and it is very troubling to me.
We believe that's very excessive. We believe that that is setting a template for martial law to be gradually eased in, and so does Ron Paul. But Lawrence O'Donnell called him a liar. He said from the very beginning to say that this was forced is a lie, that the governor was just simply telling people to shelter in place, and it was a suggestion.
Police don't need warrants. Families thrown out of their homes at gunpoint to be searched without probable cause. No guns were pointed at any families. What a vile lie. There were no tanks, and there were no police pointing their weapons at innocent citizens.
Well, when the government points a gun at you and suggests that you do something, we call that force. And they may call it something else, but they're just playing with semantics. We wanted to add to the pictures that people have already seen, pictures that were already there when Lawrence O'Donnell called Ron Paul a liar. So we sent Dan Badandi to interview residents and tell us what they experienced during this excessive manhunt. And here are those interviews.
A cop pointed his gun at me, and then they called SWAT in, and then SWAT came and picked me up by a shield, and they threw me in the back of a car and then dropped me off in the middle of Newton.
So they dropped you off in the middle of nowhere, and what time of night was that?
What time was that, like 5? Yeah, broad daylight. Just dropped me off, took me out of the cuffs, and told me to walk.
And when they put the cuffs on you, did they read you your Miranda rights?
Nope.
So you were unlawfully detained from being on public property?
Yeah.
Did they ask to search your house?
They told me they wouldn't search the house.
So they didn't ask you, they just told you?
They told me they weren't coming in to search.
And did they command you to leave your home?
They told us we had to leave, yes. One thing I was very, very upset about is that when we were leaving here, the lights were on in the house, TVs, you know, and back door, they had gone the back door down my basement. And they told me, I said, let me just close all my doors and lock up. And they said, no, they would do it. I came home. Back door was open. This is hours now later. Back door was open, front door was open, basement door was open. Lights were on, TVs were on. No one did anything.
So they basically left your house unsecured, but the doors wide open where nobody was home?
Yes, they did.
And you say there's bullet holes in your car here?
Yes, this is a bullet hole here.
Are they going to try that quick?
And there's a bullet hole here. It shot out the window on the side there. And in my car, there's a bullet hole, as you can see. I don't know where it is. Maybe it's in the car somewhere. I have no idea. But the back window's blown out and the side window's blown out. What they did, they disrupted this entire world for a day.
We initially got a report from the police department that it was voluntary searches, but then after talking to the residents, we found out that they weren't asking if they could have permission to enter homes. They were just forcefully entering people's homes to search.
So did they knock at your door or just walk in?
They knocked the door, but you know what I mean, the door, they almost
push the door through them.
And did they ask you to search your home at all, or they just did it?
They just did it. You know, they just came in and they're going through.
And did they command you to leave your home?
Yes. We left, and they say, let's lock the doors. And they say, no, we'll take care of it. We'll lock your doors and everything. We came home midnight, and everything was open. And nobody was around here.
So they left your house also unsecured and wide open?
Exactly. And nobody was around here. What takes anybody? Anybody can walk in.
They mistreated the elderly then, right?
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Yes, you know, I didn't like that. You know, like I said, they tried to do the job, you know what I mean? No. But on this point here, I got very upset, very upset.
And, did they ask to search your house, or they just searched it?
They wanted to search the house, but my grandma said nobody was in there, and then they proceeded to ask my grandma for my uncle lives upstairs, and the house is a deadbolt, and my grandma said, there's no one up there. I didn't hear anyone go up the stairs, but they still made her give the house key and unlocked it with that key and searched upstairs and all the way up to the attic. Well, they didn't want to give the key back, but they ended up giving the key back. My grandma, they did.
And did they command you at all any time to leave your home or stay in the home?
So it was stay inside. But the thing overall that caught my eye is that my friend on Franklin Street lived across the street, and the Army people did a huge search in their garage. But the boat was directly across the street. They didn't search the boat, not once. They didn't even go around it.
And that's where the younger brother was found?
That's where the suspect was. And it's funny because the police didn't find him when they did the thing. The person finally got to leave their house because they said everyone stay inside. He left his house and saw the blood on the boat.
We, had to go through multiple checkpoints. We were searched ourselves. Other journalists on the scene were told to lay on the ground as they were searched. So it was a very, very touchy, very intense situation to be in.
Matter of fact, when we woke up, a big shootout that was done from over here and over. It was looked like a Vietnam, so those guns that were going left and right.
Yeah, all your neighbors' houses got hit.
Oh, we did
Mine too.
We got a stone door
They
broke.
passed my stone door
The other doors are
and the door going upstairs.
There was a bullet in there.
If they would put 4 more feet on this side,
yeah,
they would have get me in my bedroom.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice when you're sleeping, too. Were guns pointed at you any time, and did they tell you to put your hands up in the air or anything?
Not me, but my boyfriend.
So your boyfriend had his hands up in the air and they were searching him?
Yes, because he came out to check his diesel in the back of his truck.
They were pretty much right here in front of my house, and they were just shooting down that direction. That went on for a couple minutes, and then there were 2 more booms, with the last one just really lighting the entire neighborhood up. It shook the house, set off all the car alarms.
And did they make you put your hands up?
When we came out, we put our hands up and they searched us, but other than that, we just walked down.
And did they ask you at all to search you?
Yeah, they asked. They told us that they were going to be searching us.
So what you just saw, the mainstream media, MSNBC hosts coming out saying that anybody who questions the fact that this was a police state, this was martial law training, this was training for the citizenry to give up your Fourth Amendment, to give up any notion of privacy anytime there's any type of crime. In this case, it was a 19-year-old kid who it turns out he wasn't even armed at all. Turns out he probably didn't even shoot the cop they said he shot. There's more and more information coming out on this every day. And when we played the report just featuring Dan Badandi interviewing people last weekend, over the weekend, I got contacted by our next guest. And he said, hey, you should have interviewed me. I was right there. I saw it all happen too. And he sent me this picture that we're going to put up on screen. And it's you see the tanks, and there he is right there. And so he's an intuitive healer who recently just moved to Boston. He's not a longtime resident there. And he witnessed all this stuff. And he's going to say the same thing that all the other people that Dan Badandi talked to said. These people were intimidated. They were scared. It was a tyranny, and it is a precursor to what is coming if we don't start getting our stuff together, needless to say. So we go to our guest now, Greg von Haesler. Greg, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Rob?
I'm doing great. I really don't. I'm glad we're covering this stuff, but this is a really an insane time we're living in. Why don't you tell us what happened? You actually heard the gunshots Thursday night with this so-called gun battle, which now seems like it was probably one-sided, and only one side was firing shots.
Well, when it initially happened, let me just start off by saying, as soon as the Boston bombing occurred, I knew somehow it was going to come to my neighborhood. I just had a gut instinct. I had a gut intuition, okay? The night it happened, it was Thursday night, and I was talking with my wife, and I heard gunshots. My wife thought they were firecrackers, but I'm like, no, honey, I come from a relatively, you know, a gun-loving area, so those were gunshots for sure. And I went outside, and I thought, holy crap, dude, there is a serious situation happening. But as it continued, and it became more aggressive, and I'm talking lots of bullets were happening. And then you hear explosion, 1, not too big, so maybe that was a firecracker. Explosion 2, big. And then explosion 3, huge. And you're like, okay, whoa, this is obviously going to be related to the Boston Marathon somehow. It's running through my head. They're going to pull up a police state. I know it all is going to happen. So I'm like, great, my whole weekend is ruined. And that's exactly what I'm thinking, okay? So that was the beginning. That was Thursday night. Progressing into Thursday night, FBI did show up. Within several seconds of the actual alleged crime happening, there was at least 20 police cars coming in. Within minutes, they were just zoom, 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 zoom. So many, okay?
Well, how many streets over was this from you? This didn't seem like it was right. It wasn't on your street, though, right?
It was roughly 2 blocks away.
Okay.
Okay? So close enough, but I didn't actually see it with my own eyes, but I felt everything. What progressed into the night was basically knowing that something huge had occurred. I was scared. It felt like I was in the Diary of Anne Frank for a moment, okay? Because yes, it was called a lockdown, and yes, you had to stay inside your homes, and yes, you were fearful of something going on outside. Okay,
let me stop you real quick. How did you get that information that it was a lockdown? Did it break in over the radio? Did it come through the TV? How did you receive that info?
It was coming in through the internet, which is where we predominantly get all of our information.
Okay.
And let me tell you what else happened. The first report that I had heard, actually, which I have not found on the internet since, was that it was a controlled explosion by the police.
Ah, that night.
That was the first report that I had heard that night. And so my instinct was thinking, this is fishy. Obviously, this is the same cabal coming to my neighborhood. And because of that, I was mortified because I know how these people are. I know how they act. And I knew that this was going to be a horrific experience for me. Okay. So that was my initial feeling. Like I said, it felt like Nazi Germany. Anne Frank, we had to be fearful of looking outside. This is Thursday night. That night, this is something else which I find greatly disturbing and I haven't had too much chance to talk about. I saw a suspect in custody, and he looked exactly like this guy who they have now identified as Sunil Trifali.
Okay.
It looked exactly like him, and they had him in custody. All right, they had him in custody behind my house, and I wanted to take pictures, but I was honestly too afraid to use my camera. That's why I didn't actually take any visual photography during the alleged crime.
And he was the man who was missing, and then later people assumed he might have been the bomber online because he had been missing for a while, and then they found him dead in a river.
As soon as I had heard that they had found him dead, I mean, at this point, I'm not surprised, but to think that that was happening so close to me, it just adds to the terror of what was happening. Because, I mean, I hope the audience understands here the severity of the, and I'm going to have to use the words inside job that's taking place, and false flag, because it's gone so far that it's wreaked havoc into, well, my life personally. I'm not going to say that I didn't deserve it or anything because, you know, I don't know, maybe I needed to experience this, but this is a very big deal. The level of manipulation and lies which are coming forth, and this is just the beginning of my story.
Right. Hey, let me go back one more detail. When you saw, or where you think you saw Sunil Trifali, was this near your house, behind your house? What are the details of that?
All right. I saw him behind my house. On Thursday night, the original it's like they had their headquarters. I think Dexter Avenue is what it's called. No. Anyway, it's a street adjunct to Dexter, and it is behind my house. And they kind of had their headquarters there, and they had this guy in custody. And it just seemed so strange to me what he was doing there, because obviously he was in custody to me, and he looked like the exact same guy. I don't know what much else to say about this, because it's my personal witness testimony, and it is just from my own eyes, and that's it, really.
Right. Okay. Well, go ahead and continue. Keep going with the rest of Thursday night going into Friday.
All right. Thursday night comes to a slow close because of the fact that I saw the suspect, who I had no idea was going to be connected to this some little Trafalgar character later on. I assumed it was over. Okay, I thought they got the guy. I'm not really reading the news too much because I hate it as it is. So, come Friday morning, okay, it's Friday morning, come Friday morning, things get very scary, people. Things get very ugly, okay? This is when true military force comes into Watertown. I cannot count the amount of police. I think they were in the thousands, like around 7,000 that were actually in Watertown or Boston area. But they had pseudo tanks. That's what I like to call them, like you see in the picture.
Right. Yeah. We're showing them right now, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, the guy there, they have SWAT gunners. They also have the other guy who doesn't even wear a helmet. Before I become a mess here, let me try and be more calculated. The morning of Friday, you've heard everything about martial law. You know what happened. Okay, but the significance of my experience was, first of all, I think they tapped everyone's lines because, it's a crime scene. Everyone is suspect. It's a large crime scene. They tapped phone lines. I think they tapped internet. Also, Boston Globe gave us a call that morning, which was very terrifying because that's when there was a huge stakeout of dozens and dozens of federal officers around our house. Before what was about to come, which I'll explain soon. And I think that was a preemptive strike, that they were working in conjunct, or they were the police, to try and identify who was in our house, pretending to be Boston Globe. Because allegedly they were looking for hostages, or they were looking for people who were withholding the terrorists in some shape or form. So shortly after that, we were looking through our blinds. And you also see an update from the police on their Twitter that people are looking through their curtains and they're acting like it's very suspicious activity. I'm sorry, I'm terrified of this Nazi Germany police state. Let me look through my blinds. I'm sorry.
We'll bleep that, don't worry. Go ahead.
All right. Okay, shortly after that, there was, they're coming to your house, okay? And what happened next was the worst of it. They came to my back door. They're knocking on it saying, come out now, get out here right now, get out here now. And I'm thinking, is this my last day? Am I going to die? Am I going to be somehow dragged into this under false pretenses? I don't know. So I begin to slowly draw open the door with hands up in this manner saying, please, I'm here, I'm coming out. And it's like at any given moment, they could have shot me, because even though I was being so-called compliant, which, I just had to be from what it seemed reluctantly. But anyway, I step outside. I'm staring at more than a dozen, and I think it was around 15 officers, military style, with assault rifles, M16s, aimed at my face. And I just said, I'm scared, guys. I'm scared. And right away, after I said, I'm scared, I said, come inside, like shivering. And they said, clear. So anyway, that was the worst of Friday morning.
And so they left at that point, or did they come into your house?
That was the initial, I'm going to say so-called clearance, because they were doing a total militarized, like the terrorists are going to kill us in any house. I honestly feel that my street was under the hottest tension at that time. The amount of guns aimed at people was just crazy. I don't know if they were the most paranoid at that moment around 9 a.m. But yeah, I'm starting to kind of lose track of what I'm saying here. Hopefully you can keep me aligned.
Yeah. Well, no, I understand where you're going with. And you even interviewed one of your neighbors as well. And it was a neighbor that we interviewed. And she basically said the same story both times.
Correct. Loretta, yes.
Yeah. So anyway, go ahead. So they've left at this point, right? The first time they've come to your house.
Yes, the initial sweep is over. And it's basically terror all day, making you completely sick to your stomach, like, I can't live. If I would have had to put up with this for longer than 24 hours, I would have had serious health problems. I would have really my body would have started degrading severely because of the stress that it was putting upon me. I couldn't sleep. It was literally Nazi Germany, okay? And I did have a friend who I can't name who was assaulted by police, and he was detained. He's my neighbor.
And what was he doing? Was he out of his house? What was he doing?
He's severely addicted to cigarettes, and he had to go have a smoke. And he had no nicotine patches, and he had to go outside. And when he did, the militarized police, they profiled him racially as well, because he looks similar to the suspects.
Oh, was he Indian? Was he Indian?
He is not Indian.
Okay.
No, but he comes from the same country that they do come from.
Okay.
By citizenship.
Right.
And so maybe they were pulling up people's information too, but I mean, I'm just extrapolating.
Sure.
I'm probably getting too paranoid, but maybe not.
But they detained him in any case for going out and having a cigarette.
They assaulted him first. They actually punched him at least one time in the ribs, and then they detained him. And he said to me, look, my friend, they weren't detaining me for any good reason. They know I didn't do anything. And I said, so why did they do it? And he goes, brute force, intimidation, power, a show of force.
Right.
And he said, this is all a coup. That was his great insinuation there. Nothing's really happening, my friend. So he knew that this was an inside job.
Okay. Well, keep going. So they come back to your place at some point. What happened then?
Correct. After somewhat at midday, the pseudo tank rolls by, and then a large Humvee and SWAT, a large SWAT team comes into my house. And I'll be honest, I do not even remember if they asked if they could come in or not. But let me make a point here. Prior to them coming into my house, I heard them outside because my windows are not very thick. And they were saying something along the lines of, says it was staged on Facebook.
Oh, so you heard that? You heard that?
I heard that, correct.
Okay. And had you been saying that on Facebook, that it had been staged?
Yes, I did, Rob.
Ah,
yes, I did.
So you think, well, you know, we do have reports that DHS is monitoring Facebook and Twitter in real time.
Yes, I know. I know, Rob.
Wow. Okay, we'll continue.
So as you can imagine at this point, this is obviously very humiliating. I thought because of my beliefs, I was in deep trouble, which is why I've been actually probably really reluctant, and ironically that I'm being interviewed now to talk about this, but I feel that there is a safety net to come forth and talk about this here.
Well, it's better to talk about it. And let me make another point. Your Facebook is actually set to private. So if they were looking at your Facebook, there is no privacy when you set it to private when it comes to DHS.
I couldn't agree more.
So it would seem.
And that was what I had learned from this, is that there is no privacy on Facebook, at least, whatsoever.
All right, so they're coming in this time. And how many officers?
There was at least a dozen SWAT team. It was an isolated team, as if they had been separated and told to go to different areas within Watertown. So this was one isolated SWAT team. These guys did not want to do this. They seemed like they didn't care anymore. Regardless, they did ask. I think they asked to raid my house. I'm sorry that I can't remember, honestly. But I wasn't even going to hesitate, because what I heard them saying outside, I just thought, let them in. I will not let myself even be any more of a pain in this situation, because this is way too hot. This is way too hot, and I'm just going to see what happens.
Did they tell you to put your hands up when you came out?
These guys did not do that, actually.
Okay.
They did not. They were probably the most polite officers about the whole thing. And I do want to make a slight point of that. I think they might have been Boston SWAT or Watertown SWAT.
Instead of outside forces coming in.
They did not appear to be federal.
Okay.
So, yeah. Anyway, they asked my wife and I to come outside. I had no shoes on. We brought our dog because we could not let our dog pee all day.
Yeah.
Because every time we did, we'd have guns aimed at us or the threat of frisking. You know, I saw people, little girls, being harassed, little girls, because they're trying to go outside. But I think that we kind of already know that that's gone on quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah.
So they corralled us, me and my neighbors, because they took a lot of us out at once. They wanted to check our houses. They asked me if they could go in the basement. I said yes, and I also indicated that my neighbor did have a key. So they took us, and we went on a walk.
So they took you away from your house at that point?
They took me away from my house, and I actually had a conversation with the SWAT officer, and he was very apologetic. He was very apologetic, which I thought was curious to me personally. So I decided to ask him a few questions, and I said, so it must be really troubling, you know, not having a lead, any solid lead about what's going on, right? I mean, he didn't say anything naturally, and I said, well, I think I said something else. Try to get some information out of him to no avail, but it seemed as though some of the local law enforcement was a little confused, and I want to say that.
Oh, I believe you.
Yeah.
When I was at the G20 in Pittsburgh in 2009, there was a dramatic difference between how the local police acted, and you could tell by their accents because Pittsburgh has a very distinct accent, Pittsburghers do. And they brought in SWAT and other police from Miami, from all over the country. And the ones that were not from the hometown acted a lot more aggressive than the ones who were from the hometown. And I could see why. It's you know, these are my neighbors. I might know some of these people, is probably what's going through their minds. But go ahead and continue.
Okay, so these guys, the SWAT team, were polite enough. And they essentially held us out for a time, of which I still hesitantly felt like they were suspicious of me, possibly in connection to what I had said earlier. So I was kind of on guard a bit, but then they eventually said, the FBI drove by me and a woman said, you're clear, you're clear. So I thought, okay, well, this is fascinatingly great. So we got to go back to our houses, and that was a relief, but we were still under martial law at this time.
Right.
Correctly so.
And how did you, what word did you get when you weren't under martial law, which MSNBC says never happened?
I'm sorry, can you explain that?
When did you get the word that you were no longer in martial law, or that no longer in lockdown? I think the term that the governor used was shelter in place, euphemism for martial law. But anyway, when did you get that word, and how did you receive it?
I think they were saying that this was a voluntary lockdown, was what they wanted to say afterwards.
Right, of course, yeah.
But obviously it wasn't. And no one told me that I could go back outside. I was just looking outside, and things seemed really clear, and it seemed really like it had calmed down a lot, and I wanted to go outside. No one told me anything. I called Watertown Police Department, and I said, am I allowed to go back outside?
Oh, that's ridiculous. You had to call the cops to go outside? I mean...
Isn't that humiliating? Yes.
Good God.
Right.
Yeah, so-called free country. And so since then, you're obviously distressed. You're still stressed out about this, I can tell. You know, what do you think when you see these other news outlets, these mainstream media outlets saying there was nothing wrong, we had to do this, you know, trying to make excuses for the police, you know, basically brutalizing and terrorizing the citizens?
I've been doing this for so long, telling the truth, and I've been quite an avid fan of Infowars for many years. I am not surprised, but I'm extremely disappointed. So there's not much for me to say, you know, because I understand the level of deceit and why people don't get it and why the mainstream media is on a certain payroll, just like the feds were.
Right.
So.
Well, and you were telling me earlier, right before we started this interview, that you wish you know, more people would come out and speak out. Why don't, you know, here's your chance to talk to these people right now, look straight into your camera, and you know, tell them what you feel.
Specifically my neighbors, right?
Yeah.
I think well, first of all, there was a guy who made a video about this about martial law, and I think maybe I tried to get a hold of him, and he didn't want to talk about this. I think that's the feeling I got. I think that the level of fear that's been created here in Boston specifically is, and the massive police influence that's been created is probably one of the greatest demonstrations of intimidation to create fear that there ever was. So if there are people like myself who have come out and said things about this, I do think that probably they should try and say things themselves. I mean, there's not much to it other than the fact that if you do, you're doing the right thing, you know? So.
Yeah, I think it's important that people speak out about this because it's going to happen again, and people need to be aware. You know, a lot of people were smart. They got their cameras out. They started shooting video of this, throwing it up on YouTube. And I think that made a big difference in showing the world what was going on. And this was for one 19-year-old boy. I mean, imagine what would happen if it was 2 people that were on the loose or 3 people. You know, it just seems they want any excuse they can to just ratchet up the police state and make us think like it's for our safety. And in the end, who found him? A guy going out for a cigarette. Went out to his boat and saw it. And then they shot up the boat, and then they, you know, take this guy out and give him a tracheotomy, cut his throat up, so now he can't talk. I mean, this is just bizarro world, what was going on in Boston. But I've experienced it firsthand. I've seen 1,500 riot cops show up for a protest of 50 people. And it was a peaceful protest, and it was on police brutality. Yeah. You know, I mean, it doesn't end, and it's never going to end until we just stand up and start getting in. I think we got to get in their faces. We got to, you know, go out and talk to the police chief. Why did you let these people come in? Talk to the sheriff. Why did you let the feds come in and treat us like this? You know, because they're not going to stop. Their tactics are to stomp and destroy.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else? Do you have anything else you want to add?
As Friday continued, when I asked if I can go back outside, I did, and there was still Watertown police on my street. Okay, a very normal, macho, funny a-hole cop, you know, but he's small town. Okay, he was just sitting on the corner and cracking jokes with my neighbor. So we're allowed to go back outside, but there's a great feeling of tension. Okay, and shortly after this, probably within 5 or 10 minutes after I got the okay to go out, you heard gunfire again, and this is the so-called boat incident. Mm-hmm. And it took these Watertown PD. This is the face they made. They looked so confused for 5 to 10 seconds, just lost. Like, is this really happening? They didn't know what was going on until, bam, get back in your houses. Okay? Wow. So, I mean, I just wanted to point that out. They did not understand what was going on. And
then they yell at you to get back in your house. And it's all for your safety.
Orders would say, yeah.
They just tell you it's all for your safety over and over again. Wow. Hey, Greg, plug your YouTube site, because you've got a lot of different things on your YouTube site, you know, which some of our viewers I think would really be into. Not everybody, but you also did a lot of videos about Watertown, walking around the street, interviewing people. So plug your YouTube site and let's show it on screen, and you know, people can maybe communicate with you via YouTube.
Yeah, check out my YouTube. It's youtube.com/legitimistic, LEGITAMYSTIC. I've been trying to talk about the stuff going on for a long time. I perhaps have a different perspective and put a different spin on it, but I mean, I think we're all kind of fighting the same fight here. Exactly. I mean, we're all fighting for the power of our minds at this point. You know, there is a war on for your mind, and you're fighting it in a different way than what we're fighting it. But, you know, in the end, you know, we're all looking for reasons and truth out there. So, you know, I commend you for putting your videos out, for contacting us, and, you know, you really wanted to come on the show and tell your story. So I'm glad we could let you do that, and I hope you continue to speak out and maybe get some more people to talk and do some interviews out there. Send them to us. Oh, thank you, Rob. I will, actually. Thank you very much. Excellent. All right. Well, thanks a lot, and we will talk to you soon. All right. Bye-bye. Wow. Thanks to Greg Von Haesler for contacting us and speaking out. I mean, you know, it doesn't take a lot of courage. It just takes a little bit of courage to really just go, hey, you know, this isn't right.
what I witnessed, and telling people what you witnessed, because the mainstream media is out there telling the rest of the world that nothing happened. Everything was fine. We have to do this for your safety. We have to treat you like prisoners in your town. And I noticed that he was wearing orange there. He almost looked like a prisoner. And the way he was acting, I could tell he was, Greg has been deeply affected by this. I mean, having 16 people aiming semi-automatic rifles. I mean, how do you think that would make you feel if you're in your house? And this is supposed to be, just another normal April evening. And, there you go. You got the police using their tactics on him. Let's pull up his YouTube page. It's Legitimistic. And he's made a lot of videos about Watertown. He's got some other stuff on there, lots of different things. And, there's did I see Sunil Trifali, who was a guy that, they said had nothing to do with this, and he thinks he may have seen him in custody. Who knows? Who knows? There was so much going on. But that's just one guy's perspective of the martial law that he witnessed. And, he thinks it's martial law. He doesn't agree with MSNBC and the rest of the Skexy media that this was not a, for our safety, and that everybody had permission to come in, and that people didn't have guns pointed at them. They weren't coming out with their hands up. He had his hands up going out the door. He was afraid to get shot in his own house. So hopefully people get in contact with him. He'll do some interviews. I saw one where he was walking around with his iPad shooting some stuff, reaccounting. And, he actually pulled a couple of his videos off. People were, the comments were so hateful for what he was saying. So anyway, that's our show for today. Thanks for David Knight for coming in earlier. And, we're still slogging through those entries for the Paul Revere contest. And, we said we were going to announce the winner July 4th, but it looks like that might be overshadowed by the big march that's going to go on starting in Arlington National Cemetery going towards the White House that Adam Kokesh has been organizing. Alex is going to be going there. There's a good chance I'll be there. I don't know who else he's going to bring with him, but, that could be a big moment as well. Like, one of these catalytic moments that kicks off another round of police state insanity. And like I was telling Greg earlier, in 2009, I was at a park at University of Pittsburgh campus, several miles from where the G20 was being held. And there was a protest of about 50 people in a park protesting police brutality. And Luke Rudowski was there, some other people associated with We Are Change. Jason Burmis was there. And over the next hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, about 1,500 riot cops showed up in full riot gear to go after 50 people who were in a park, talking about police brutality, ironically. They surrounded the park. They shot tear gas into them, got those guys out of there. And then the spectacle brought out all these students from around the area. These kids walking around in boxer shorts and T-shirts. And this was, this is late September 29th, I believe is the exact date, 2009. And then they proceeded to practice kettling maneuvers on the students. And I actually got caught up in that and ended up getting arrested that night just for doing my job. And the police state, it knows no bounds, and it's going to keep continuing. This is just the latest step in it, and that we're chronicling here at Infowars.com and Infowars Nightly News and PrisonPlanet.tv. If you're watching this on YouTube, please consider becoming a member of PrisonPlanet.tv. We have a 15-day free trial. There you go. There's victims of martial law in Boston speak out. There it is. That's Dan Badondi's report. We have a 15-day free trial. You can give your password and username, and up to 11 of you and your friends can be on it at the same time with that username and passcode. So spread the information. Spread it while it's still there, because they could lock down the internet at any time. And when that happens, we're going to hard copy. And that's why we had the Infowars magazine, which probably by this time, I think it's been sold out already. So, but the next issue, Alex was talking the other day about keeping this sticker thing going, because it seems to be pretty popular and a great way to get the word out and a great way to wake people up. And, this is a hard copy, and the feds have to go around individually and confiscate these and burn them, just like they used to do with books back in the day when there was that type of censorship going on. So with that, I'm Rob Dew, And it was a pleasure doing the Nightly News tonight on this Wednesday, May 8th, 2013 edition, and we'll see you back here tomorrow night.